When the kids in the old commercials said, "Crunchitize me, Captain," to Captain Crunch, what did they mean? What does that word mean? Did the children wish to become crunchy? So I'm back, and as usual, I've got thoughts that I need to unload. I actually dug up my iPhone. It's not a tripod because it's got 4 legs, but it's a pop socket tripod or something like that. And so hopefully there will be a little less shaking, although I still am just like sitting on my bed. So like movement happens. That may change. I'm hiding from my children right now. So if I ever get a chance to record, when they're not in the house, I'll be recording somewhere where I can just put the quad pod on a stable surface. I'm going to say the words "as always," even though this is literally the third video in a series I've just decided I'm doing, I think. But as always, if you don't want to look at my face, which is, again, not something that I blame you for, the Void is going to have some interesting stuff in it. I've been producing some really fun stuff, art experiments and slow motion capture things. Who knows what I'm going to put in there. One day I'll probably put glass stuff in there because I do glass art, or just pictures of my dog because he's cute. And it really just depends on my mood. I think that what I'm going to establish for myself is that if I have a short time between graphics because I do actually put information in the Void, watch, for all of my links, because I do too many things to keep track of. So if you want to access my social media, my blog, my Threadless store, you can go to my Linktree, which is always going to be on my YouTube profile and probably in the video description, but it's also supposedly right there in the Void if you want to do that. So if there's like short times between graphics, I'm not going to like start a video. I'm going to just put a picture of Jordy, my dog, and that'll be that. So he'll be my space filler, my short space filler, but there will always be something there to amuse and distract you. If you want to listen to this like a podcast, you absolutely can. Like I said, there will be visuals in the Void, but hopefully this is understandable even if you don't see them. So in the past couple of videos, I talked about a couple different things, and honestly, I'm not going to rehash because you could just watch those videos. But today I want to talk about 2 words that I feel are significant and weighty buzzwords in at least the American, and by American I mean United States of America, dynamic and ideology. Ideology is an interesting word. I did not understand it when a professor tried to teach it to me in college, but the way that I think about it now is, and I'll put the definition in the Void, an ideology is like if everybody in a society subscribes to, it's not collective unconscious, it's just, you're not aware that you're subscribing to an ideology, but it exists. It's kind of pervasive throughout society, so that your way of looking at something or thinking about something is influenced by society in ways that you don't even realize until you're able to separate yourself from it or see an outside perspective or something like that. It's the best way I can describe it. It's still kind of hard, but like I said, I'll put the definition there. In fact, I already have. I will in the past future. Speaking of past future, we're going to be talking about paradoxes today. Paradox is kind of hard to identify until you see one. Fortunately, I have the definition for those as well. Forgive me for looking off camera. I am going to be just reading the definition while it's written in the Void, which, you can read that there. But the 2 definitions I pulled from DuckDuckGo, because I no longer use Google for any of my searches. Number 1 definition that DuckDuckGo provided me is a statement that seems to contradict itself, but may nonetheless be true. The second definition it provided, there were 3, I think, but the first 2 will give you the point, is a person, thing, or situation that exhibits inexplicable or contradictory aspects. And the word that you want to pull from that is contradictory or contradiction. To me, paradox is a more like, it's like a very exact and scientific form of irony. I think irony is a big umbrella, and that paradox can sometimes fit under there, because irony is when, something happens that is the exact opposite of what you'd expect to happen. The example that I like to give is from Futurama, or any kind of time travel. Futurama is a great show, but I don't know what I'm allowed to talk about on YouTube, but basically the main character of Futurama, Fry, Philip J. Fry, goes back in time and encounters a beautiful young woman and has relations with her, only to discover that she later becomes his grandma, and it turns out that he is his own grandfather. This is a paradox. It's a contradiction. How can he exist to go back in time to make himself exist, right? There's a whole list of time paradoxes, but one of the ones I like is like when something gets invented because somebody went back in time and accidentally left that invention there for people in the past to see. Like it could only exist if it already existed, right? Contradiction. In this case, this might be a little clearer. I'm going to be talking about paradoxes of tolerance and freedom. And if you read the video title, then you probably already know that. But tolerance and freedom are two words that I think get thrown around a lot in American society ideology. And I think that nobody really truly digs down deep enough into what those words mean and understands that paradoxically, neither of them really function in their intended roles as words if people do not accept the limitations on them. And so one of the biggest paradoxical statements that we'll get to today is that you cannot have a truly free society unless every single person understands the limitations to their freedom. That's the paradox, is that, you know, freedom has limitations, but it's free, right? The limit does not exist. Is that reference still okay to make? Look, I'm a millennial. So first I want to talk about tolerance. I went to my second TikTok. My first TikTok is just me doing glass stuff. And occasionally a random parenting video that I posted because I didn't have my second TikTok at the time. My second TikTok is Potato Lady Thoughts, which is like this channel based on a defunct Twitter personality that I had back when Twitter was Twitter, where I did podcast reviews and called myself Potato Lady Podcast Reviews. But on that channel, I asked people to tell me what they think about when they hear the word tolerance. And I was quite surprised by the answers, because I believe that in American society, tolerance is often bandied about as if it is a positive, as if it is either a neutral word or a positive word. Something that I think is really important to emphasize about the word tolerance is that it actually leans negative. Despite the fact that we are telling people to aspire to it and that America is the land of tolerance, it's kind of a negative word. And so I'm going to show some examples of what people replied on that video. And I was quite surprised because just pretty much everybody said something that it was basically what I was thinking was just like, yeah, to put up with something, to deal with something you don't like. So they understood the negativity of it. But the example that I give of it having a positive connotation, and then the English teacher in me has to, at this point, quickly go over connotation and denotation again. The mnemonic I came up with it is that denotation is the dictionary definition. Denotation and definition both start with a DE. So denotation does not have any subjective qualities to it. So denotation is not going to tell you how people feel about a thing. It's not going to tell you what people associate with something. It's just going to tell you what it is. If it defines death, it's going to tell you that it's when carbon-based organisms stop breathing. I should have chosen a different one. It's literally going to define like the biological process of death. It might also like go into some more figurative meanings, as in like if your computer dies, like it's not literally dying, but it still won't get emotional or subjective over that. Connotation starts with CON, as does context. Connotation brings in emotional and subjective context to a word. And so how you feel about something, what you bring to it, is connotation. And so the word liberal, for instance, has negative connotations for conservatives. The dictionary would not define liberal as having negative anything. It wouldn't say like, and this is a bad thing, or this is a good thing. It would just define what liberal means. But the context that conservatives add to it is that it's a negative word, right? They feel badly about it. They don't like it. Tolerance has a positive connotation, and this is, I guess this might be at this point a deep pull, but the scene that always sticks out in my mind is when Sir Ian McKellen in the original, I think it was like 2001, maybe 2002, I'll put it in the void, but you know, the original X-Men movie with Hugh Jackman and Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart. Ian McKellen is doing a kind of villain monologue to Anna Paquin as Rogue. And he says, look, there's the Statue of Liberty. And she says, I seen it. And he says, I first saw her in, I'm so bad at years, 1940 something. when I came over here from wherever I came from after the Holocaust. America was supposed to be the land of tolerance, of peace. That's what it was supposed to be, right? In his eyes, it was supposed to be a tolerant land. He's saying this as like this is a pull for America, is that there's tolerance, and he is disappointed and bitter, as he says that it was supposed to be that, because he's saying it's not. There's no tolerance there, right? But the fact of the matter is, and now we're going to get into it. When I ask people what they think of when they hear the word tolerance, the first response I got, again, I'm going to do the thing where I just read it, is, again, I don't understand TikTok. Like, TikTok gives you a username, but also just like a different name, like a profile name. So I don't know which one you comment under. So it's going to be in the void. It's already in the void probably, but like, hopefully I'm citing my source as well. Whatever. So somebody whose username or other is Kelsey Calise said, to put up with reluctantly, it gives me negative emotions associated with dealing with something you don't want to because you have to. And I love that I'm guessing because of Kelsey, but like, I'll say they. The fact that they said negative emotions made my English major heart squee with joy, because that's connotation. So they are essentially saying, I have negative connotations associated with the word tolerance. Arrow 70 said that they thought about the tolerance paradox, which I found very interesting because I never heard of anything like labeled the tolerance paradox before. I'd always thought of it as a paradoxical word like freedom, but I didn't know it was like official. And so then when I talked to my friend Adele about it, they also said the tolerance paradox, like unknowing that someone had already pointed it out. So of course I looked into it and asked Adele about it, and I'm going to put a link to a resource that explains it really well, even though I'm going to kind of talk about it in the video description. And it's going to be kind of salient. And then there were just so many other people who said, like, you know, to put up with, it's not a good thing. Or at the very least, like, if I get to do what I want to do with my life, other people should be able to do the same, which is exactly correct. But what I wanted to get to is that to tolerate something is the bare minimum. If you tolerate someone else's existence, it does not mean you have to understand that person. It doesn't mean you have to like that person. It does not mean you have to want to be friends or more with that person. It literally means that you will allow them to live their lives and breathe air and go about their business, and that you will not actively attempt to make living life harder for them. Like, that's all you'll do, is like, you will allow them to live and breathe and go about their business, and will not actively try to sabotage them. That's tolerance. And that's what we implicitly and explicitly ask of people in this country, right? Could you please show some tolerance? Could you please allow gay people to live and exist, even though you don't like them? Please. And the sad truth of the matter is that so many people in this country have just gone like, no. We threw the bar on the ground and we were like, look, all we need you to do is step over this bar. Please. Just step over this bar. And they were like, actually, I'm going to get one of those like drill machines that you always see in cartoons and just like burrow right under it. I'm going down. I'm going under this. Like, not only am I going to think and say hateful things about minority populations in this country, but I am going to actively try to make their lives miserable. I'm going to actively try to push them out of existence somehow. And, you know, straight people who are bigots don't understand the point of the gay pride parade and stuff like that. And it's just like, you are the point of the gay pride parade. Like, the whole, like, we're here, we're queer, get used to it thing. That's because what they're saying is that even if you display a childish lack of tolerance, and even if you refuse to acknowledge they exist and refuse to acknowledge that they should get married, and, you know, that's not going to suddenly make gay people disappear. The LGBTQ community will continue to exist regardless. And those parades the irony of it is those parades will maybe never cease to exist, but they'll cease to be necessary when there is tolerance, complete tolerance. Again, we should aspire to better. We should aspire to understanding. When you ask someone to tolerate somebody else, you are literally saying, like, you don't even have to, like, read an article. You don't ever have to try to understand better things that you don't understand. So the tolerance paradox, which I didn't really get to yet, this video is already going longer than I wanted it to, is that in order to have a tolerant society, you cannot tolerate intolerance. There's a certain level of intolerance required for tolerance. That's the paradox. And it's true. It is amazing to me how much we pander to people who are explicitly intolerant. It is astounding to me that there are so many people out there who believe that whether or not trans people get to exist, or whether or not trans people get to use the bathroom, is any of their business. Not only do they think it's their business, they think they have the right to vote on it. And that's just not, it's like, that's what I said about main character syndrome. It's just not your business. It's not you. In a free country, the idea of voting on whether somebody else gets to do whatever they want with their own body is astounding to me. Like, the fact that people are like, yes, I should get to do this. I should get to decide whether random strangers get certain surgeries or not, or use certain pronouns, is amazing, and not in a good way. And so the fact that they are being intolerant, that these intolerant votes and movements are being given credence at all, that the fact that the KKK gets to, like, sign up to march in Washington, the fact that the Proud Boys get to, you know, like, you know what, that's not their name anymore, haha, but you know, like, that we as a society never confronted the fact that we're never going to get where we need to be if we allow that to happen. And people like to cry, and we're getting there, right? There is a connection here. Oh, but my freedom of expression, my freedom of speech, right? My freedom of religion. You can't impugn upon that. You can't violate that by telling me that I have to accept gay people. My religion doesn't like gay people, right? So I'm going to say they can't get married. And it's like, why? First of all, nobody put your ability, straight person I'm talking to right now, to get married up for debate ever, you know? So let gay people get married. This is what tolerance is. You let them get married. You let them go about their lives. You let them get divorced. You let them have children. You let them have PTA meetings. You let them forget to text their dad on his birthday, just like anybody else. And you might say, like, but equality. And it's like, well, yeah, that actually is equality, because you don't get to tell a trans person that they have to be cis, but a trans person also doesn't get to tell you that you have to be trans. Equality. So you see, that's how you get equality, and you have to tolerate everything up to intolerance, right? And so that's the paradox, and we're not there. We are not there. It's a big discussion. How do you effectively shut down intolerance and explain to people that their intolerance is not covered by any kind of freedom? There's a limitation on their freedom, and I'm going to get to that now because it's important. But before I do, and I'm sorry, but I feel a rant incoming. I knew this rant was going to happen. But the word identity, by definition, means that someone's identity can only be formed, shaped, changed, solidified, defined by the individual to whom it belongs. The fact that anyone believes that they have the right to dictate someone else's identity to them is unconscionable. Back off. I know that these people are not used to being told this, but too bad. You don't like trans people? Too bad. You're going to use their names, you're going to use their pronouns, you're going to use their preferred nicknames, just like you would do for any cis person who walked up to you and said, hey, my name is Alex, but I usually go by my middle name, Benjamin. Just like people did for me very easily. My name is Rebecca, but I started going by Bex a long time ago. But basically, I like to say, you know how there's like no I in team? Well, there is an I in identity, but there's no you. So back off. And if you're saying, well, why can't I just say too bad to trans people? I'm glad you asked. It's because when a trans person says, hey, I identify this way, they are speaking of themselves and for themselves only. When you are saying, I identify you this way, you are trying to define someone else. Too bad. You get to define yourself as much as you want to. If you want to wear only pink clothing, if you want to listen to only Nickelback music, if you want to get your ears pierced, if you want to live on the beach and subsist on seaweed, all of that is fine. But the moment that you try to tell somebody else who they are, you are majorly overstepping. It is ridiculous that I have to tell people this. You do not get to dictate someone else's identity to them, ever. And this happens with petty things too. I've heard people have like stories about like they have tattoos, and people, older people usually, will be like, ugh, gross. Shut up. It's not your body. We have a real problem in this country of people thinking that they have any say over other people's bodies. You don't. Full stop. You don't like trans people? Too bad. That's my answer. At this point, there's so much literature out there, so many anecdotal stories, so many videos explaining what makes somebody trans and why, that the fact that you are still refusing to understand it, you're still pushing back, you're still claiming that you have a right to tell them that their identity doesn't work for you, it's willful ignorance. You just want to hate. You're just a hateful person. So I'm done trying to reason with you, whoever you are out there. You don't like trans people? Too bad. You don't like gay people? Too bad. That's my answer. So that's my little rant about that. It's just too bad. Grow up. That's my other thing. Grow up. Oh, you don't like this? Oh, it's scary, it's different? Oh, you don't want them to use bathrooms? Grow up. Who on earth gave you the right to tell somebody they can't pee? Who do you think you are? Stop. I don't care if you don't like it. Continue to write in your diary every day about those evil trans people making you remember to say she instead of he. Tell your parents about it. Tell your family about it. Rant to them as much as you want. Freedom of speech, right? You don't have to stop hating them, even though you should want to. It's weird that you don't want to stop hating people. It's weird that you think you're in the right when what you feel is hatred. You could crack open a book or like DuckDuckGo, like what makes somebody trans. You could try to learn, and you don't, and that's on you. But you do not get to tell someone that they don't deserve to exist because you find them yucky. You just don't. No ifs, ands, or buts. This is a free country. Let's talk about freedom. Freedom only works if every single citizen of the nation that is free has the exact same freedom. As soon as you try to limit somebody else's freedoms, it's no longer a free country. That's oppression. It's not freedom, it's oppression. The United States of America is currently not a free country. Freedom only works if everybody has the same amount. Everybody has to be able to do the exact same things, right? And everybody has to follow the same rules. There are laws, and the laws apply to everybody just as the freedoms do. But people talk about their freedom of religion and why that makes them hate gay people. Frankly, I think that that's a smokescreen, and that they're using, religion as a justification for just, straight up hatred. But I'm going to explain the limitations there, right? I think that we've been done a disservice by the sheer positivity associated with freedom. America's a free country. But people think about freedom as utopia. Freedom of religion means that you will never have to associate with or encounter anybody who has a different religion from you. Freedom of speech means that you can tell people that you don't like to go away, or that they don't have the right to exist. Freedom of the press, I don't even want to get into that. And then the freedom to petition, which everybody forgets about. And assembly. Racist groups have been using the freedom of assembly to their advantage for a very long time, as long as they're doing it peaceably. But there have to be ways to address that so that we're no longer tolerating intolerance. But what I want to talk about most is freedom of religion. I genuinely think, first of all, that the Pledge of Allegiance should just not happen. Like, it's so creepy. Like, ask any first grader what pledge means, or allegiance. Like, you're just having these children like recite this like indoctrination speech from a young age. I once told 2 British guys on a podcast about the Pledge of Allegiance, and they were gobsmacked. They were like, what are you talking about? And even worse is when I taught in Texas, I found out that there's a Pledge of Allegiance to Texas, and that many, many states have their own pledges of allegiances for their state. Like, what if you moved from a different state? What if you want to cross state lines to go to a cheesecake factory because your state doesn't have one, but the city across the border does? What are you, they gonna stop you and be like, you pledged allegiance to Texas, you can't go to New Mexico? It's getting a little out of hand. But the under God thing, the fact that our money has, you know, the references to God, the fact that people say God bless America, the fact that there's a song that says God bless America, like the whole like freedom of religion / like separation of church and state thing has not been particularly well enforced. It's been more of like a practice what I say, not what I do sort of thing. And those should be taken out, but so many people would riot because they really truly don't understand what freedom of religion means. And so I saw a graphic once when I was teaching, and I've recreated it here for you, and it's going to be in the void. But basically, freedom of religion does not mean that you're just like free to practice your religion and make sure that everybody else does too. It means that you are free to practice your religion and other people are free to practice theirs, even if it's not your religion. And so the graphic makes it very clear. Freedom of religion, in the first, you have 2 silhouettes. The first one says, my religion says I can't do that. And the second silhouette replies, okay. The second situation is when the first silhouette says, my religion says you can't do that. And I will go back to my previous statement. Too bad. In Judaism and other religions, pork is not supposed to be consumed, nor is like a combination of dairy and meat. But cheeseburgers and bacon cheeseburgers are still served at many restaurants because other people don't follow that religion. The problem is that it gets tricky. So there's limitations. Your freedom extends to you and only you. You don't get to tell me to be Christian, but I also don't get to tell you to be Jewish or to stop believing in God. But some people's religions involve pushing their religion on other people. So how do we address that? Because I don't actually want to attack Christians specifically, I've decided to make up a person and a religion, a ridiculous sounding one, because there is an issue of separation of church and state. And it has been encountered already with that one woman who refused to give gay people marriage licenses. You have school teachers who have been fired because they refuse to acknowledge their trans students. And people say, well, what about my freedom of blah, blah, blah? My freedom of speech, my freedom of religion, right? Something like that. And, you know, this woman who didn't want to give gay people marriage licenses because, you know, the world would end or whatever, her religion, while she was working for a government office. And we have separation of church and state. So what do we do about that? So I just wanted to address that, but without attacking anyone, because that genuinely is that's not my intention at all. I just want to make people aware of how hard it is to have a truly free society. It's hard because you have to have people accept the limitations, and you have to have people tolerate gay people getting married, even if you don't like it, even if they don't like it. I'm going to make up a person and a religion. There will be a woman, in her late 20s, early 30s, like my age, I guess. And we will call her Blamanica. Blamanica is a follower of the religion of blue shirtism. And in her religion, it is forbidden to wear blue shirts. She cannot wear blue shirts. And she is perfectly within her rights through freedom of religion to never buy and never wear a blue shirt, and to never be forced to wear one. So if she went to Best Buy for a job, they might question her choice to specifically seek out a job that has blue uniform shirts, but they would not be able to force her through freedom of religion to wear a blue shirt. They would have to get her one of those like black Geek Squad shirts or whatever and have one specially made for her. But like if they hired her, first of all, they could not refuse to hire her based on her religion. That's important. And if they did hire her, if she had the qualifications, they would have to get her a non-blue shirt. Simple as that. But what happens if, I've already forgotten, Blamanica gets a job at a government institution? What happens if she gets a job at a school, a public school, where either there's no uniform, like they just have free dress or a dress code, or their uniform is blue shirts. So the students are wearing blue shirts and some of the staff are wearing blue shirts. But she wants to teach. She cannot be forced to wear a blue shirt, but she also cannot tell students or other staff members to stop wearing blue shirts, even though it is against her religion. And she can be disciplined for violating that. And it's not a violation of her freedom of religion. If someone believes it is against their religion to see someone else violating their religion, we have a problem. Because while Blamanica can't tell people to stop wearing blue shirts, other people can't tell her to wear a blue shirt. And that's where freedom of religion kind of ends. That's the equality of it, is like nobody can tell her, nobody can dictate to her what she, that she has to wear something that is against her religion. But she also can't affect anybody who is violating her religion because maybe they're not the same religion, or maybe they are, but like me, they don't practice the tenets of their religion. Because I say I'm Jewish because, I'm proud of my heritage, but I like cheeseburgers and I like bacon. So, and I'm an atheist. Even someone who's the same religion as you might not follow the same codes. They might just do things that technically violate the religion you share. And what to do about that, right? So, but at the same time, what if part of the school fundraiser, the yearly school fundraiser, involves handing out blue shirts to every student? The school has bought a blue shirt for every student, again, public school. And they've asked the teachers in first period to hand out blue shirts to the students. And Blamanica has a first period class, and she has, depending on where she is, anywhere from 17 to 41 blue shirts to hand out. Public schools. We're actually going to be teetering towards education pretty soon here. I'm going to get away from politics. What is she to do? It is against her code to wear a blue shirt, but the school is asking her to hand them out. If she refuses, this is a problem. Maybe not, right? The school could just, find ways to accommodate her. But depending on the level of stink she raises about it, it could lead to some big issues. If she starts trying to protest the entire fundraiser, if she starts trying to stop the school from handing out blue shirts entirely, blue shirts that they've already spent money on, that could be a real problem. And she, unfortunately, does not have any right to do that. She does not have a right to tell other people that they will not wear blue shirts because it violates her religion. At best, she could say, I won't participate in handing out the shirts. And I think that that's fine. But what if somebody else came into her classroom and handed out the shirts and she still wasn't okay with that? In case you couldn't tell, this is like the marriage license thing. How do you tell a government employee that they have freedom of religion and all, but they do have to also accept that they might be doing something that tangentially feels against their religion because of separation of church and state? And it gets more complicated. What about voting? Technically, if somebody is voting for a person and they choose to vote for them because they're anti-gay marriage, or because they are Christian, or they choose not to vote for someone because they're gay, and basically anytime they make a choice to vote based on their religion, it's technically not separation of church and state. But how could you tell people, by the way, when you vote, make sure you're not including religious reasons in your vote? You can't do that, right? Especially since a lot of people see their religion as part of their identity. There's that word again, right? So how can you tell people, well, just set that part of your identity aside? It becomes difficult. And for that, I'm just okay, you know, people vote how they're going to vote. Honestly, whatever influences people to vote, I mean, is fine. Like, I wasn't actually saying we should stop people from using religious reasons to vote for or against something. But it gets tricky. People work for a government job. People, as part of that country that has that government, they have freedom of religion, freedom of expression, but their employer can also tell them, like, you need to do this, even if you say it's against your religion. And of course, like, somebody who religiously does not wear blue shirts probably should not seek out a government job where, you know, where they will be exposed to people wearing blue shirts, people asking them to hand out blue shirts. But again, freedom. We can't tell Blamanica, you are not allowed to seek out any kind of government position. Can't tell her that. So, and I'm not proposing any solutions here. I'm not saying that, you know, what the school should or shouldn't do, any of that. I'm just saying that we run into a lot of issues when it comes to actually bringing freedom to fruition. And a lot of people react badly when you tell them no. When people say that the United States of America is an English-speaking nation, it is not. Freedom of expression means that I can speak my own made-up language that nobody else understands if I want to. I can make up the name Blamanica. Freedom of expression means that people can speak whatever language they want to, as long as it's not hurting anybody. People talk about freedom of speech not meaning freedom from consequences, right? You cannot yell fire in a crowded theater when there's no fire. If there is a fire, great. But, you know, if you incite a riot, if you cause violence, if you cause harm, if you threaten somebody, that's not covered. So people understand in certain situations that there are limitations on their freedoms. They understand that. But at the same time, they try to hide behind these freedoms in the First Amendment to the Constitution. Separation of church and state being a separate thing, by the way, but I kind of glommed them together. I'm sorry about that. I'm not a civics teacher by any means, but we run into these issues. People saying that hearing happy holidays violates their freedom of religion. People saying that they will not do this thing in their government job, even though it's legal in their country because it's against their religion. How do we tell those people no? A lot of these people aren't used to being told no. It turns out that it's people in majorities who are often the loudest voices saying, I won't do this or I want that. I want the Bible in public schools, or I want English to be the official language of the United States. Well, then it's not going to be a free country. I think we need to really address or find ways to slowly start addressing that people just can't do this anymore. They can't advocate for their religion to be seen as a priority over others, or their language, or their sexuality. They certainly cannot tell other people what their identity is. It is as ridiculous as me going to a store and picking up a shirt I want to buy and being told, you can't buy that shirt. I don't like the idea of it on you. Or me going to a hairdresser and saying, I'd like to dye my hair blue, and having the hairdresser say, no, not for you. I see you in pink, so you're getting pink hair or nothing. Like, you don't get to tell someone else what their identity is in any capacity, even if it bothers you. So many people bothered by tattoos, by piercings, by dyed hair, by ripped jeans, by lipstick, by no lipstick, whatever it may be. You just don't get to, in a free country, tell somebody, you need to change yourself to make me more comfortable. And then not acknowledge the irony of the fact that you won't change yourself to make other people more comfortable. It's not hard to learn somebody else's pronouns or their name, right? All that's asked of you is that tolerance thing. It's to just, like, give people the very basic common courtesy of using the name that they want you to use and saying he or she or they, or whatever other, I know there are other gender neutral pronouns out there, right? It's not a big ask. And the fact that you're saying you won't change yourself in that little, it's not even changing yourself, it's changing your behavior, I guess, in that little tiny way to make them more comfortable with their identity. But you will try to tell them to change everything about themselves to make you more comfortable, is hypocritical. And I have to say, I think we've got to be done reasoning with some people, because we've got a real situation on our hands where the hubris, the chutzpah, is getting out of control. I didn't come up with this. I think my best friend told me about it, but basically controlling people's ability to use the bathroom is not a new thing, whether it's introducing the concept of gendered bathrooms at all when women joined the workforce. Turns out that you didn't used to need to have a women's and men's bathroom because women weren't allowed to work or weren't expected to, or were allowed to, but it was frowned upon, or they got sexually harassed a lot. And then it came time for segregation, that lovely, lovely contradictory statement, separate but equal, separate bathrooms, among other things, of course. But like controlling where people pee and other things is not new. It's not anything about like, oh, we don't think people will be safe. Like they're grasping at straws there. It is about demonstrating power. I have power over you and your body. I can control where you pee, or try to, or make it hard for you. It is just another element of a concentrated, figurative assault, sometimes literal, on a vulnerable minority population to try to make them feel unwelcome. In the same way that saying this is America, speak English is not actually a request, but an attack, a rejection, really. I reject you. I reject who you are. Because attacking someone's name, attacking someone's language, that is a surefire way to make them feel unwelcome, uncomfortable, possibly in danger. And it needs to stop. It needs to stop being tolerated. And that's what this video has been about. We need to stop tolerating intolerance. We need to stop accepting that some people are just going to say, no, I don't like those people, and I live in a free country, which means I should be happy all the time and never have to encounter anyone who's different from me. That's not what a free country is. We need to make sure people understand the First Amendment, what it covers, what it doesn't cover, and that sometimes in a free country, they're going to be told, too bad. Put on your grown-up pants or bottoms of choice and just tolerate difference, whether you like it or not. You know, life is hard. You're gonna encounter people who think differently from you, who look differently from you. It's gonna happen. That's what freedom is. That's what makes freedom beautiful. America was supposed to be the land of tolerance, of peace. And people need to stop thinking that the First Amendment or citing freedom is going to be their shield to allow them to continue to be bigots, racists. I don't know how we take those steps, but it's got to start sooner rather than later, because there are people who are in danger. And as I said towards the beginning of this video, hating them is not going to make them go away. It is going to cause hate crimes. It's going to cause injury, death, self-inflicted harm. It could cause that. It has. But it won't make the people you hate disappear. Like poof, disappear. They have existed, they do exist, they will exist. And it's time to stop telling these people that they have any right, sorry, these bigots, not trans people or whatever, gay people, that they have any right to assert their own feelings, thoughts, opinions in an attempt to erase a section of the population from this country. Just full stop. No more reasoning. If they don't want, no more. Just too bad. Full stop. You don't get to do that. We need to take all legislation that involves people's bodies and people's relationships out of circulation. To think that the government of a free country could somehow tell somebody who to love or what surgery they can get, you know, like what cosmetic surgery, what necessary surgery, whatever it may be. That's not freedom. That's oppression. Just some thoughts.